Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Sigma Prism YouTube channel. Today, I have one of the core members of the Ergo Foundation. His name is Mark Glasgow. Welcome, Mark.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well. So you're kind of one of the foundation members that uh, are most active in the community, usually on Telegram and Discord. If people are on Twitter, they might not know you exist as much. But tell me, what are your day-to-day functions? What do you typically do, and what kind of responsibility do you feel as, one of the core members of the foundation when it comes to Ergo?
Well, it kind of varies from day to day. Usually I'll go through and answer any open questions or support requests and connect with the right people. When I'm not managing the community directly, I'm constantly trying to grow Ergo however I can through things like improving structures and pathways for developers, or direct outreach on socials, as well as supporting other teams working on Ergo, such as the editorial team, the marketing team, events team, or even ecosystem projects whenever I can. If I feel something's lacking for Ergo, I'll create it or pester someone until they do. This led me to starting the Ergonaut subreddit, Ergonaut.space, managing the website redesign, and most recently the Ergo documentation site, which I've been trying to spend some more time on recently. Get our developer resources up to scratch.
Right.
Um,
Uh,
I also started, I also started the Psychonauts program back in January, trying to establish a framework um, and had the power back over the community. We're almost up to 50 Psychonauts now. They've acting independently, making their own proposals and driving that forward. So that's great to see.
a little off the general questions we have here. What is it that you envision the Sigma Knots program ultimately being? I think there's a lot of kind of a gray area between kind of conceptualization and then actual execution for now because it is a work in progress. And it could be kind of, I'm a Sigma Knot myself, and it could be kind of difficult at times to kind of uh, carry the burden of that weight without fully understanding what it will entail going forward. Can you share a bit more about that?
Yeah, well, it's still kind of in early stages, even though it's been going pretty solidly for a few months now. Um, you've probably seen yourself with QX working up the voting mechanisms. So in future, that'll be kind of more established. It should be clear of what we can do and what we will be doing when you start seeing votes going through. And the Signal have a treasury, and hopefully we can just start shifting more responsibility over there bit by bit as suited. It's kind of the main idea to kind of just get more power over there and get them doing more things and get as much away from the EF as we can over time.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough. I think that would be a good thing to do going forward. Um, so how did you begin with Ergo? Why did you choose this community in particular? We have thousands of communities and thousands of subreddits all over about crypto.
There's lots of reasons, to be honest. For a bit of backstory, in my teens, I was drawn to kind of the cyberpunk scene. I was introduced to agorism, darknets, and the concept of an uncontrollable decentralized market. At that point, Bitcoin wasn't even a thing, and people were still using Western Union, MoneyGram, so we're still a long way off. I kind of put it to the back of my mind, started a job in IT for a small business, worked my way up a few roles. After a few years of that, I realized it wasn't really for me. Went back to do a computer science degree, and I found Ergo just when I was finishing my dissertation. It kind of ticked all my boxes. It seems to be one of the only chains building with those first principles, complex smart contracts that we can use to build robust alternative economic systems. And having looked at most of the projects on the surface level, at least, comparing base features, consensus mechanism, distribution capabilities, and nothing really comes close or is as versatile as Ergo is.
Yeah, yeah, you make a good point. I think for me, it was the same because if you look at most projects, see, first of all, the obvious incentive to profit from creating that project when you have the insider token allocation for your team and then the fund. And the roadmap is so arbitrary. And it sounds great, but there's no evidence that it will ever be executed. But by the time the project has enough marketing or does the bare minimum to launch, they've created a tokenized asset that has no value behind it except for the retail investors that piled in behind them, and then you know, it's all on chain, but nobody knows what's going on. And before you know it, the whole thing imploded because there was nothing there to begin with, or not enough, false promises. So I think Ergo is kind of reverse engineering that in a way that they're not promising anything but the tools. They're not promising, that it's going to be the next big thing or an Ethereum competitor, because it's up to users to experiment, use them, and actually build the actual dApps on top of it. Yeah, that's a good answer. I agree. So for the Ergo Foundation, there is a 4.5% nonprofit allocation to that, solely for ecosystem development, solely for fostering growth and hosting Ergo hacks and doing those types of things. But the day-to-day functions aren't very well understood. We don't know what you really do apart from what's being, discussed on Discord. And it's not a adversarial thing. It's just a curious thing. What is it that you guys do behind the scenes, day to day?
Well, we meet weekly and discuss any proposals, whether that be grants, bounties, partnership proposals. We get a ton of smaller requests from exchanges, DeFi apps, and chains wanting partnerships. So I usually have to look into each one of them, see if there's anything worthwhile, put to a vote if so. But mostly it's kind of a lot of admin stuff, especially the past few weeks. Most have been us just still trying to get a bank account, talking about reincorporating in Dubai, heading my first year of accounts. We're aiming to make as much public as possible, with very few discussions related to the development of the core protocol taking place in private at the moment. So some recent examples of the things we discussed are negotiating with exchanges for a listing and marketing fee, supplementing miner rewards during the slow epochs after the merge, discussing details of unannounced partnerships, performance of developers we're paying, whether we should keep paying them, hire more, what we need, if we need to hire someone to build a certain tool. You can see the descriptions of the foundation members on the website. I'm also currently rewriting the foundation page to make it more detailed, and I hope to try and get some more votes up there, depending on what I can make public. So check back in a few weeks.
Okay, perfect. Would it be possible to perhaps even have a log of sort of how we do weekly dev updates, have a foundation update of what ongoings have been discussed and done, and the small steps to encourage the everyday user to say, hey, look, we're moving forward, not only from the development standpoint, from all the tech people, but also the not so sexy legal standpoint, the things that need to get done behind the scenes, that in order for everything to thrive and survive.
Yeah, that's what I plan to put on there. It is a bit tricky with NDAs, because if you put on accounts votes and you spent 200,000 ERG, and they need like 20,000 ERGs accounted for, and there's just a blank spot, you kind of work it out. So probably to get some advice of what we can show, but absolutely most, like 90% of the votes can be public now that they're being voted on. They're just small things, and I'll do that in the next few weeks.
Okay, perfect. So you mentioned you have a computer science degree. We all know what the developers in Ergo are capable of. They're some of the finest in the space, right? But many people like me, we feel, I'm not going to speak on the whole community, but I'm sure there's people out there that feel like they're incapable of providing more to the ecosystem. They don't come from a dev background. They're not going to participate in an Ergo hack. They want they're excited about all the developments that are going on and the Babel fees and all the AIPs, but they feel kind of disenfranchised from being able to provide more utility to the ecosystem. What would you recommend for people like that? How can they help to contribute in a real feasible, qualitative way?
Well, qualitative way we've not quite got yet because the structures aren't quite built up yet. And the best advice I could say would be join all the chats you can, see what piques your interest, and help out because we've got plenty of people that aren't developers already that end up in community management roles or doing other things. We've even got non-developers leading developers like Excel and Ergo Ergo loans. So there's plenty to do, but at the moment it is kind of you kind of need to figure it out yourself. But hopefully that's something we can kind of solidify further. We do the regional outreach groups, so you could start a regional community. You could just plaster stickers over your town. It could just be anything you really think of, really. But yeah, development is the most concrete and clearly defined at the moment. So we've got lots of people there, and it ultimately means we're lacking people with soft skills and non-developers. So it is an area we need people in. So I would just join the chats and see where you can help out, what skills you've got, what you can do. But yeah, a lot of it will be marketing based. But I'm sure there's lots of other creative things people will think of in the near future.
I don't want to deviate too much here, but it is very hard on November 9th, 2022, not to mention FTX and kind of, in my opinion, this uh, overbearing focus on speculative trading tools, you know,
Mm-hmm.
uh, trying to launch as many possible trading vehicles and tools for volatile crypto assets and then find out that you're over leveraged or you have a liquidity issue and then all of a sudden one of the top five exchanges in the world, top 10, um, needs a bailout and they were formed maybe just a couple of years ago. I I don't know about you, but for me, I kind of feel like there's again, when we think of crypto, it just seems like everybody's trying to make a quick buck, and there's so many resources allocated just towards the exchanges and all of these venture capital funds and everything like that. And then you have the three arrows and a bunch of things just crash, or Luna, for example, crash. Why do you feel like there's such a focus on that side of things, setting up infrastructure around things that may not even be, you know, um, just solid? They don't have a solid foundation, and we don't have that type of focus and seriousness when it comes to, building on Ergo, maybe all the things that they have, but in a decentralized manner. Why is the talent focused on that in a very, company setting and forming all of these entities and buying marketing for basketball stadiums and things like that, and then we don't have that type of seriousness and energy when it comes to decentralized components like the ones we have in Ergo for most people?
Well, it's probably most likely because it's shiny. It's got an attractive yield, which is mostly it's unrealistic most of the time. But people love getting 200% yield. If it's something we can do in Ergo, I'd want to do it there as well. But unfortunately, our way is a bit slower. Path development, we have to build up these things. Like you might have seen the other day with Kush releasing the decentralized grid trading first transaction, so stuff like that. Well, it might be a small amount. Is you can completely peer to peer. You can run it yourself off chain. So I think we need to build up that way. And once you can get a small yield reliably and robustly, people opt over that from a high risk, high yield kind of situation with FTX and these other exchanges because you see these things keep happening. People get over leveraged and liquidated, and exchanges go down. And but I think in the long run, this way will kind of work out better for us in the scene.
Yeah, hopefully. hopefully if you fall and trip over yourself as an industry enough times, and retail investors obviously are the frontline soldiers getting shot first by holding that token, and we don't even know where it can go from here on out. Hopefully we have that shift, because more things are being broken every day. The only thing that hasn't been is probably Bitcoin and a few other ones. So
Yeah, it's still early days. It's all kind of experimental. A lot of people make sacrifices. They'll sacrifice decentralization and security and just do it a cheap, easy way, which leads to these problems. It's because we don't have robust, reliable ways like Ergo that have been built up for years. But we'll get there. And once they're available and they're established, they'll spread a lot easier, I think.
yeah, we have like an alternative crypto stock market essentially. It's a terrible shame, but as you said, early days. Um, so Node 5.0 is one of the most significant new developments for Ergo this year. It feels like there's always a major milestone right around the corner. We just went through the EIP 37, I believe is the number, and before that, EIP 27 as well. I mean, these are very significant developments. And now we have Node 5.0. Apart from the costing fees, right? It's very technical, just in time, and all of these things. Essentially, for the everyday user of Ergo and the blockchain, it just makes everything much more efficient. What are some aspects of Node 5.0 that maybe people are not giving enough attention to in terms of how it can affect the future development of Ergo in a beneficial way?
Well, it is a very technical update and technical and complex because I think it's been worked on for the best part of 2 years, maybe a year and a half. But that is pretty much it. It's just a kind of iterative step next, and it will, for the front end user, it will just make it a bit more efficient and quicker. You get more transactions in a block. But also, it's more important for developers because you might see on the Discord, developers often run into problems. Costing when they're writing their contracts. So it's been a pain point, and they've had to kind of write workers to get around it. So once this goes live, I think it's in 28 days or something, it's set to activate. The network as a whole should be a lot more efficient, and it should be a lot more a lot better for developers to build on. So it'll use the hybrid of those two costing methods at different stages, which gets the kind of the best of both worlds. Yeah, I think that's it. Did I not answer your question? I kind of forgot the end of your question there.
No, you did. You did. For the foundation and the 4.5%, do you know why that number was chosen, and why Ergo, despite all of the beautiful tools that are currently available and not being exploited by developers to the maximum that it could be, why has Ergo taken that long road approach? And then, why do you have any insight on why 4.5% roughly was chosen for the foundation?
I'm not sure why the exact number was chosen. I've never actually had been asked that, so I've never had to go look for it. I just know that Kushner decided that they needed a small amount to deal with liquidity exchanges, was the quote that the sentence he described Ergo as. So it's just a very small amount, smaller than I think even other conservative chains take about 10% at minimum. So 4.5% is very low, but I'm not sure what the exact number is, why it was picked. But I think this was the right approach, even though maybe with a bit more it would have been easier. But in the long run, this is definitely the right approach. It kind of attracts the right person to Ergo, and it's allowed us to build like a strong base of hundreds of developers, tens of thousands of Ergonauts. When I first joined, it was a very high barrier to entry, which is why you've got the slow growth, because you need people to come in and understand all these complex topics, which are often stashed away in various forum posts or on this Discord. And they kind of piece it all together. But once that's built, it starts moving a lot faster. So change with lots of funding can just throw money at people to build polished tools for they can throw money at people that don't care about their blockchain, build polished tools for developers, not put people in. It lowers the barriers to entry, but they won't stick around, I don't think. I think in the long run, those kind of developers don't stand a chance against a grassroots effort like Ergo. Throwing money at things kind of just goes things linearly. But Ergo's got a kind of chance to grow exponentially in the right setting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because each person advocating for Ergo, they can spread it. Whereas if you're just hiring people, they'll put out press releases, it'll pull people in. They maybe have fun, maybe developing the app, play about with it, but I don't think they'll stick around long term. It's just popular because it's easy to use, it's relatively quick, and people want to make that sacrifice now because there's nothing better to use. But there will be.
Um, do you think that, I mean, where do you envision, in your opinion, Ergo being in the future if people adopt it the way they responsibly probably should over time? Because we do see, okay, you have a lot of talent in the industry, but it really splinters off. And we have like a ridiculous amount of blockchains that all of these resources are being put and great ideas into smaller and smaller bins. You know, you're dicing up the talent so much that when an average end user goes on, I don't know, Coinbase or any exchange or tries to look at subreddits for crypto, they're not going to know which one to pick. They're not going to know if Chia is the one, if Alephium is the one, if Ergo is the one. And they're probably going to look at the
Mm-hmm.
Reddit users on the side to make that decision or look at speculative reasons to invest in it and not really get involved the way they probably should as a community member. Um, so again, going back, I know that was a long-winded preface, but my question was, where do you envision Ergo really being in terms of market capitalization if everybody gets on board the way they eventually probably have to?
Well, there's a ton of projects out there, but there's very few actual unique layer ones. There's a couple dozen that push. Um, and I think over time, like Ergo's main strength is kind of its usability and the way it kind of just slots in. Um, so you could do things like cross-chain D-apps and then fold the transactions together with NEPA pals. You could do all these complex things. Kirsty once described it as the Polka of UTXO. So it can do side chains. It's kind of really built for interoperability and kind of bringing these strengths to other chains as well. So in the future, I don't think people will have to make decisions on how active the subreddit is. They'll make decisions based on, oh, this is the app that everybody's been raving about, and it works really well. People are kind of making those decisions now because there's not much going on, apart from some hobbyist stuff or very specialist stuff or advanced stuff. But once that starts becoming more mainstream, and you've got your granny using some DeFi app for savings, um, that's when Ergo will really shine. You can plug and play into other. You can bring these benefits to other chains. You can bring Bitcoin to Ergo and mix it and outcompete other mixers. Same with ETH and Tornado Cash. Don't have to worry about censoring blocks. You can just bring it to Ergo, mix it there, bring it back. So all these kind of things. There's lots of opportunities that aren't explored yet that people aren't really aware of. Because the Ergo mixer is the only token mixer in the space, so nobody else can do that. Nobody else can mix wrap tokens. So I think that'll be a big benefit, especially with the bridge, which I've just got a link to test soft launch for Rosen. So those kind of things, I think, will really get our name out there and kind of show the strength of Ergo. And I think that's where we'll be going in the future towards another change and interoperability.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I never thought about that. How you can bridge and then use the mixer for wrap tokens. Um, Real quick, I don't understand. I understand mixing. I understand coin join. I don't think they're very difficult to understand these concepts. But Ergo Mixer is one of those, I call it like the octopus arms of Ergo that isn't really touched on too much. Um, the mixer, how does it function and why is it superior to something, in the US, this is like hot water. Like, why are you talking about this? But Monero and, a lot of the other mixers that or privacy coins, I should say, that have their own thing. They're not broken. They're not, Monero still works fine, I'm sure. And it's a fork of Bitcoin's code, right? But what is it about Ergo Mixer apart from that interoperable mixing component that can be explored in the future? What makes it unique in the space versus anything else?
Well, it's got a slight advantage over like Tornado Cash and the F-based ones because they use ZK snarks, which require a trusted ceremony. So there's a small chance of an exploit that
Mm.
way, and a bit of weakness. There is one being launched for Bitcoin, which is similar. I think it's called what the name called Snickers or something like that. But it's not launched yet. The way the way Ergo Mixer works is basically it puts your erg in a box for somebody else's erg and then sends it out. From the outside, you can't see who's went in, who's went out. So it's this kind of simple process, and it just keeps doing that through various rounds, which makes it untraceable. Of course, like Monero still has an advantage because it's just so much more popular than Ergo. But if Ergo became popular, it could theoretically be more secure than Monero because it's not prone to certain inference attacks that Monero is. Uh, but at the moment, there's not many people using the mixer, so its strength is kind of based on how many people are using it. But we do have a token being worked on, the future ErgoMix token, which will be airdropped. Um, and hopefully that'll bring in liquidity because it will allow you to stake your ERG. So you can put your ERG in, buy these tokens, and then your ERG is mixed with other people's ERG, and you earn a small percent of the fee.
Who
So
thought
that'll
of
bring
that?
liquidity. And a non-22S. So the guy who made ErgoMixer is an anonymous developer for obvious reasons.
Oh, yeah.
And he's planning a tokenization scheme, which will hopefully bring in some liquidity. But yeah, it is kind of untouched somewhat. It's also because it's a local application, so it's a bit harder for people to run because it's not secure to run it in a browser because the secrets are generated under the hood. So it needs to be local, I think. But also, it's been integrated into wallets and stuff, which makes it a bit easier. So it's in Safe Wallet, Safe W at the moment. But I'm sure it'll appear more in future, and then we'll have kind of more complex things like mixed nets and all these advanced privacy things that we haven't really touched on yet because they're quite complex. But we will get there.
Wow. Yeah, when you think of it that way, yeah. Uh, I can see how our small community, and I mean small of like, you know the numbers better than I. You're actually the one that helped to grow the subreddit from whatever it was before I joined to where it is now, right? Um,
Mm.
what would you? That's probably a curious thing. What would you say is like a good estimate of the amount of ergonauts we have across all social channels?
It depends. Like we've got lots more subscribers than active day just now because as soon as the price goes down, like 80% of people just turn off the phone and delete all the apps. But a
Yeah.
good chunk of chunk of them do come back. At our peak, we got like 1 million page views a month just on the subreddit, and it's the same for each socials with Twitter and Reddit get about the same, and we've got YouTube as well. All in all, I think at the moment probably about 50,000 kind of active Argonauts. But as I said, in a bull that could shoot way up as people come back. You just want to kind of build up this base and get people subscribing and make people aware of Ergo. And then as soon as the price pumps, then they're back in and they love it again. So you kind of it gets easier each successive time. The more kind of base you build up, even though the community doesn't seem to be growing as much, they're kind of still growing in the background. But still, yeah, we've came a long way the past 2 years, from maybe just a couple thousand up to
Wow.
50,000.
Yeah. Major accomplishment. And although
Mm-hmm.
Ethereum shoved a very difficult situation on Ergo, and other proof of work coins, I mean, our name is out there, you know? You're forced
Yeah.
to look at the menu now and say, I need to know what each of these coins actually do. And
Mm-hmm.
most GPU mineable coins, they don't they don't even have like a DeFi capable platform where you can use all of the same tools like if you were on Ethereum, for example. So it's not a sandbox, is what I mean, a DeFi sandbox. And Ergo is kind of the only one, or one or two maybe, that is like that. I don't think Ethereum Classic has any dApps, or obviously Ravencoin doesn't have smart contracts, you know. So when you look at it that way, and you're like, okay, well, if if the coin has room to grow and in demand as well, and it is scarce and it has utility, I probably should mine this when it's profitable again. And then, you know, it's a compounded effect, hopefully. Um,
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
what are Sigma protocols for people that don't really, it feels like a mystic word, Sigma protocol. What the hell is a Sigma protocol? And why is it important? Why do we care? Why should we care?
So you may have heard of snarks, but they're basically just a basic version of that. So Lightning protocols have been around about since the 80s. Ergo picked them for their simplicity, and they help us bring privacy to Ergo, basically. So they're kind of baked into Erg, works through the Ergo mixer, they're in the logo. I'm not sure how to explain them without being overly technical, but basically they offer some advantages over, say, K-Snarks. Um, the main reason they were picked is because stocks weren't ready, especially when Ergo was first designed. They're still kind of research topics, still are today, kind of. And Ergo just kind of focuses on simplicity at the core in every aspect, um, and then build the kind of complexity on the application layer, so we can put more complex things on top. We use a Diffie-Hellman proof to turn our current Sigma protocols into a zero knowledge proof, which allows you to prove you own something without revealing the secret. Is kind of the essential thing. Yeah, let me know if that was clear.
Um, I hear a lot that education is a very big, important aspect of onboarding new developers and users into Ergo, but it does also feel like it has to be community driven. You know, I know you do a great deal on your end for documentation. You do what you can, but ultimately, if we had like a Coursera equivalent of Ergo script and all of these things in a perfect world, knowing that Ergo script is an amazing language to program in, and we have smart contracts, and the library grows all the time. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how do you have any thoughts on that? How can we achieve that without, you know, saying, "Hey, the community, you figure it out," kind of thing? Apart from what you do, of course.
Well, we've recently taken on a non-BR to kind of help with education. He's an officer at the Ergo Foundation now. Um, I've been working on documentation myself. Well, I'm sure you know we've got Deco and we've got other courses like the JS Hitchhiker's Guide to Ergo. We've got these from the kind of community devs. We are working on more kind of structured stuff from ourselves. So I've been working on the Ergo Docs website for the past month or so, to try and make that a bit more approachable for new developers. Um, Deco is also kind of working on putting their course into a workbook to make it less video based, which might be what you're after, kind of more course based approach. And I know somebody else is also planning a Blockify version, which is kind of like a visual tool for programmers to learn Ergo script where they can drag stuff in and compose these kind of things. But yeah, that's kind of what we're focusing on in the next few months with that recent appointment. I think Deco will probably be the one you'll see first appear. But yeah, there's lots of stuff on the horizon.
Are you concerned at all living in the West that we can have a situation where Ergo is kind of a dirty coin because of its optional privacy features? In South Korea, for example, a lot of those exchanges, they took off any privacy coin up, just blacklisted it overnight because under the guise of we're protecting the public and blah 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 from and there's also anti-money laundering laws which are understandable. um are you concerned with that at all? I always, Armenio had basically an approach on Twitter that you can't really control those are uncontrollable variables, and that Ergo will still exist in those jurisdictions that users are legally allowed to use it. And even if it was made illegal, what can you really do as a government to enforce it if there's no central point of failure for any of this stuff, and like the mixer is locally hosted and blah blah blah. But does it concern you in terms of adoption rate if we had that sticking point in the near future? Because we just saw it with Tornado Cash here in the US, where you have dirty ETH now, and you could be, in trouble for having any tainted ETH that went through that protocol. Does that concern you at all, or are you?
I think that was always going to happen. There's always going to be pushback. The good thing about Ergo is it is optional, so they're unlikely to block Ergo. They'll just block mixed transactions, but they can block any mixed or privacy transactions anyway. And that's kind of what you expect they're going to move towards. And it will probably be a slow shift, and hopefully more people will shift to peer-to-peer solutions in the meantime. And we get some more reliable on-ramps, kind of take back control from the centralized exchanges. But I think it would probably require a bit of pain before people are willing to give that up. But it doesn't concern me too much. No, I just see it as a natural progression. It's probably a good thing because it shows you we're evolving, and there will be pushback.
To be clear, the Ergo mixer is it built in to the base layer, or is it like a separate DApp?
It's a separate DApp. Sigma protocols are built into the base layer. Ergo Mixer is an application of the Sigma protocols, but actually the base layer is not private at all. It could be forked and made completely private, but it's not, and I wouldn't see us running into any issues the same way. F didn't really have issues. It's more on the Tornado Cash front they had issues. So you may see certain exchanges block mixed ERG, but I think that's a risk people need to be aware of and something to expect. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's very hard not to get excited about the future when you break it down like that. Because oftentimes Ergo kind of feels like it's so all encapsulating that it's hard to remember like how many potential avenues people have to explore and then really flesh out something powerful, because it hasn't been done in many aspects yet,
Yeah, it's so vast, so much you can do, and so much we've not even touched on yet. But yeah, it's exciting. You should be excited because there's lots of stuff going on. And we've seen from the recent hackathon, there's 15 projects, so there's still loads of people developing, building even during the bear market. And there's a lot of stuff just almost ready to come out. We've got Rose and Bridge, Babel fees, 5.0. We've got all these D apps coming out as well. So yeah, I think it'll be an exciting few months as this stuff kind of matures and comes out.
What are Babel fees, by the way, for people that don't know?
It's so you can pay in a native token. So say you've only got Anita BTC in your wallet and you need to send it somewhere, you've not got any ERG, you can pay it with Anita BTC. The transaction fee, because normally you need 0.001 ERG to send a transaction. This just pays it with the native token. So it creates an order to do a swap, and then a bot would grab it and fill it, and do that for you. So you don't have to buy ERG, and you don't have to worry about going to exchange, buying ERG, sending it back just so you can make a transfer. You can just use the native token, which was always a pain for me when I was trying to use a DEX or something. You try and do something, it's like you've not got enough of the native token to make a transaction, and you've not got enough native token to even make a transaction to buy the native token. So you need to buy it from another place, then send it in. It's a whole issue. So Babel
Oh,
payments are
wow.
a great thing. Yeah.
They only do the transaction fee though. You're not going to get, obviously it's only for transaction fee to facilitate that.
What else did I mean?
Well, you mentioned that, for example, you could pay the Neta BTC for the 0.001 ERG. Could
Mm-hmm.
you could you send an order in a Neta BTC to get another? I mean, it's solely for the process of facilitating a transaction, but the transaction is primarily ERG. Like you want to send 20 ERG, but you
Mm-hmm.
don't have the transaction fee component, and that is the only part that you'll pay in the non-native token. I mean,
That's
the
the way
native
it's
token. Yeah.
that's the way we programmed into the wallets, but the actual structure is just like a buy sell. I want to sell. I need the BTC for this price. Who wants to buy it? And anyone
Oh,
can take
okay.
it.
And that runs
And that
through Spectrum.
no, it's just on the network. It could be. I think it's just peer to peer. Yeah, it's just on the network. It's not through Spectrum, although it can interact with Spectrum's bots. I think. Or
So
I know
who's
who's what.
fulfilling the order on the other side? Is it a liquidity pool? Uh,
Who's ever like you've seen Kushti's decentralized grid bot? One
yeah.
of the things that can do is fill Babel fee orders. So somebody may put 10,000 ERG, they want to put it passively, and it will just fill orders, and then it will buy any to BTC or whatever people want to trade, and then it will sell it market value and gain a little bit each time. So it's just somebody like taking a small fee for doing that transaction, giving them some ERG.
Oh, wow. So there's kind of like an under the hood, a decentralized exchange component going on that doesn't involve Spectrum.
Yeah. I'm not. I can't remember. It was a while ago. I read the EIP. If you read the Babelfees EIP, it's described. I think it just creates a box, and then somebody can take that box. Say, I want to buy that box. Was the order.
And
But
how would
yeah,
you
it's quite
interact with that? How would you, what would be the interface? Would you do this in the Ergo wallet? Would you?
well. That the Babelfee ones is in the Ergo wallet, but people could build other interfaces for it. It just depends what people want to build.
Right, right. Flush it out, bake it into your thing. Oh, that's
Mm-hmm.
really cool. Yeah, that's really cool. I didn't really understand it until now too much. Yeah. And that kind of sets the framework or the foundation as well for when you have the rosin bridge and there's a bunch of tokens coming in as well. Would a wrap token be considered a native token on Ergo, right?
Yeah,
An,
yeah,
equ an
yeah.
equivalent from the
Mm-hmm.
foreign chain. So you could pay the wrap token, the transaction fee at that point as well. And okay, yeah, this is
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah. Yeah, it's a cool feature, definitely.
Um, by the way, what what does the foundation feel is going to be their end game to eventually dissolve and you guys all go your separate ways? Do you have any insight on? I know Alex in our interview, I spoke to him for like 3 hours, but he mentioned that this isn't a forever thing for him. What is kind of
Mhm.
the end game for all of you and the foundation?
Well, the foundation and treasury was to bootstrap ERG, so it's to get it going in the early years and then hopefully hand it over to the community. So I imagine Christopher wants to build something himself and not be a manager because Kushti is more of a developer than a manager. The
Oh,
end goal is not clear at the moment. There's no clear end termination date at the moment. We're just trying to figure out how to best hand over control, um, budgeting for the remainder of the treasury, what we can do to promote ERG in the meantime. But yeah, it's just that. That's why the treasury is so small. It's just to actually bootstrap it in the first few years, get it going. and then you can take it from there, so it can be truly resilient like Bitcoin is.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. Um, so finally, final topic here, mining. It'd be hard not to mention such an essential component of our ecosystem, the proof of work GPU mining. Um, a lot has gone on, and I'm not an active miner currently, but as far as I understand, ERG is still not profitable to mine, right? If we're talking about
Uh,
paying for your overhead costs and coming out with a small profit at the end, right?
I don't think anything is. If you get free electricity, I think the top most profitable coin is like 30 cents, and it was like 24. So there's not much in it, but there's nothing profitable if you're paying anything more than 0.05 per kilowatt or something. So unless you're in like Africa or some parts of Russia or something, nothing's profitable at the moment.
Um, Now with VIP 27, and we have confirmed that we will undergo, and we have been undergoing an 85% reduction in block rewards. I think we began the year around the high 60s, and around the block height, uh, the block height of 2027, we're going to hit 3 ERG. Um,
Right.
or yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, is there a way that we can ensure mining profitability even in a good market when we have so little ERG to go around? Because obviously there has to be the lag of demand to come up from behind it. And if you don't have the demand grow as the block rewards decrease, it kind of feels that, you're going to make mining unprofitable even in good times again. Um,
Mm-hmm.
at that point in time. So, what can you share a little more insight on that? I mean, there's nothing that can be done now to make it profitable. The only thing that can be done is build, and but regardless, the block rewards continue to go down, and we don't know when bear market will end or bull market will begin. We could fall into a recession and be here for another couple of years, and the block rewards still go down. And if nobody's there
Mm-hmm.
on the exchanges to pick it up, right? The miners are selling, selling, selling to for cover their costs. How can we kind of increase the demand while the block rewards are going down? Because it kind of feels like a ticking time bomb in terms of, are we going to do this thing or not? Are we going to make that 3 ERG really scarce, valuable, and desirable for people to want to mine it in 4 years' time?
Well, the miners are ultimately in control. So the soft fork that we had, you can do that again. You can soft fork the re-emission contract as many times as you like to change it and kind of suit the real world needs as well as the macro conditions. I think the market will kind of need to find an equilibrium, which hasn't happened yet. So there's still a lot of people holding on to their old tech who will need to capitulate at some point. But I think eventually it will be profitable again. But I think with the rate of development we're seeing on chain, I'm hopeful we'll also see some other things like side chain fees appear in future. We've got a few posts in the subreddit going over storage rent potential, and that should be clear in the next few years as we start getting payments. But I think once we start getting this information and see what the market's like, then we can make those judgments. But I don't think there's any big concern because we could always fork the re-emission contract, but hopefully it won't come to that. I don't think it will because we've got quite a good bit of time. But yeah, there's a lot possible. We're going all these different ways we could supplement miners. So it's just who comes up with the most creative ideas over the next few years and how the macro conditions is.
Do you think we've given ourselves enough of a runway? Because if you compare, you know, the emissions now to Bitcoin originally, we're kind of running the same race, but we have all of we're in such a crowded space that when Bitcoin was around, it was in by itself. Exchanges built around Bitcoin, the
Mm-hmm.
foundation and us as a platform, we have to convince exchanges to even have us. You have to pay a lot of money to be on them. They need to integrate all of the nodes and all of these different things and update them. Otherwise, the withdrawals on Qcoin go down, allegedly, so I've heard. So there's so many components to it, and we're in such a crowded space, but the emissions are running the same race. I think Bitcoin, what was it, 50 to 25 in 8 years. So at the end of 8 years, it was 75% mined. We're giving ourselves 8 years, and we're going to be 85. No, more than that, I think. No, probably around 80, 85% entirely mined. But it's not. It's a lot of pressure to get the ecosystem up and running in such a short amount of time and make sure profitability is there. And if we're successful, it's an amazing thing. But if we're not, what if the hash rate collapses, and we don't have any more ERG to give people, what if, right? Because you say re-emission contract, we can fork it, but the ERG that has been emitted is already gone. So you can only play with the numbers of what is left, not what's already been mined. So it's a big, in my opinion, it's a big pressure.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's important to also realize that like Bitcoin had a lot of growth problems as well. They had a foundation that they run a PR campaign to try and make Bitcoin popular again, and it worked. But I think we've got a big advantage because the platform's just so versatile. So if people want it to survive, they'll find ways to have that. So yeah, I think there'll be a lot of advanced stuff being built in future. People find ways to siphon fees into miners. I'm actually going to go look at the storage rent post after this call because I forgot about it. I forgot the exact details of it. But I think storage rent will give us a couple of ERG, and then we get a couple of ERG for something else that all add up. But I don't think we're at risk of hitting 2026 and then going, oh, we've forgot to do this and we're out of ERG and all the miners are left. So I think there's a kind of build up over the next 3 years before we get there, hopefully anyway.
Yeah. For future developments, are there anything out there that you can share in terms of what comes after Node 5.0? What is next? What are the major milestones that the core team and other developers want to see?
In terms of the core protocol, I would imagine it's kind of layer 2 scaling sidechains. Yeah, it's not been discussed much recently because we're so focused on the stuff ongoing just now. But that seems to be where it's headed next. We've got a layer 2 chat, lots of high level discussions. We've already got the plasma library from GitWalk, which is used in their mining pools. So that sends their mining payments out already using the plasma library, which compresses it into a AVL tree with like a tree data structure, and then just posts it back on chain. So scaling, I think, probably the next one, and maybe something like proof of useful work, or other cool things we can do in side chains and explore there, because that's kind of unexplored area as of yet. But I'm excited to see all the kind of stuff that's built off the back of this bridge. Now we're connected to Cardano, which gets us into I think it's like Algorand, Cosmos, F. It gets us to like 6 chains as well through Cardano's bridges. And then Rose and Bridge can connect to any other chain with multisig pretty easily once the first one's going. It only takes, I think it takes like 2 or 3 weeks to build the next one once this one's working, because the base is done, all the logic is done, the watchers and the structure for maintaining the security is all done. So you just write a connector for each chain, and you can get a new bridge.
Perfect. Yeah, the Cardano thing. Yeah, definitely want to try to resolve low-hanging fruit there. I think Spectrum is doing a great job, and yeah, there are so many variables that are yet to come that will influence our ecosystem positively that we can't anticipate at this point in time, just by having the bridge and the accessibility. You don't know who's on the other side of that waiting to
Mhm.
be building here or trying to do something interoperable. But the liquidity from ADA through Spectrum, if they're able to really become a prominent DEX for the Cardano community, I mean, that would be a huge liquidity boost because they're top 10 by market cap. I mean, we're like in the 200s. So it,
Yeah, yeah,
it's like
definitely. And I think uh,
drinking from a fire hose in terms of liquidity. Oh, trading
I think
volumes, I should
you
say too.
you even mentioned in early days that because people both share the EU XTO model, EU EXO model, they could actually do some cool things like sharing liquidity across chains. So you can have one pool and have shared liquidity behind the scenes. So yeah, I think it'll definitely be a big help having that connection. I've seen Spectrum actually launched on the Cardano public testnet a couple of hours ago. So yeah, it's all kind of coming together.
Yeah. All right. Well, I really appreciate your time and your patience. Hopefully, the community finds a few of these questions relevant to their the questions they have in the back of their heads as well. And yeah, thank you for your time and for coming on and continue the great work you're doing. You do a lot that maybe goes underappreciated because you're not in the weekly AMAs as much, and
Mm.
you're insanely active. So I just hope you have a good mental health over there. You're able to manage life well because I always see you. I open up Telegram, you're there. Through thousands of messages. I'm like, oh my God, it's a lot of responsibility what you do. So we appreciate it. I'm sure I'm not the only one.
Thank you, mate, and thanks for having me. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.